The United States calls it Operation Epic Fury. Israel calls it Operation Roaring Lion. And within hours, the regional balance of power shifted. This is what we know for sure, what remains unclear, and where this conflict is most realistically heading next. The strike. Operation Epic Fury began on Saturday, February 28, 2026, at approximately 9:45 a.m. local time in Tehran. That timing matters. Modern air campaigns almost always start at night, but this one didn't. The strikes were launched in broad daylight, a deliberate tactical choice meant to ensure senior Iranian leadership would be inside government buildings, not in private residences or underground shelters. According to U.S. and Israeli officials, this was not a warning shot. It was a decapitation attempt. Within the first 24 to 48 hours, U.S. Central Command and Israeli Defense Forces confirmed strikes on over 1,500 targets across Iran. Explosions were reported and independently confirmed in multiple major cities, including Tehran, Qom, Kermanshah, Karaj, and Khorramabad. The most significant strike hit Tehran's Pasteur Street district, the heart of Iran's political and clerical power. That attack killed Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, along with several members of his family. Israeli and U.S. intelligence coordinated the strike, targeting not just Khamenei himself, but the institutions designed to replace him. Buildings linked to the Assembly of Experts, the body responsible for appointing a new supreme leader, were hit. National security headquarters were struck. The presidential complex was also targeted. This was not just about removing a man, it was about breaking the succession system. At the same time, the U.S. and Israel launched widespread strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities, missile production sites, IRGC command centers, and naval assets. President Donald Trump announced the operation publicly, listing 4 objectives. Prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon, destroy Iran's ballistic missile arsenal, degrade Iran's proxy networks, and destroy the Iranian Navy. Trump also explicitly called on the Iranian population to overthrow the regime, making regime change an open, stated goal. Israel's prime minister framed the operation as necessary to remove what he called an existential threat. This was not limited war, it was strategic escalation. CENTCOM's wording made clear this wasn't meant to be a one-off strike. Officials described Operation Epic Fury as an operation that had commenced, not concluded. Language typically used when follow-on waves are expected. The White House reinforced that message. In a March 1st statement, the administration framed the operation not just as deterrence, but as an effort to break Iran's ability to threaten the region and force a political end state. That kind of public framing makes rapid de-escalation harder, because backing down now would look like a reversal rather than restraint. The firepower. The scale of force involved is the largest U.S. regional deployment since 2003. On the American side, assets included B-2 stealth bombers, F-22 and F-35 fighters, Tomahawk cruise missiles, and HIMARS rocket systems. At sea, both the USS Gerald R. Ford and USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike groups were operating in the region. One of the most notable elements was the first ever combat use of Lucas drones, low-cost, uncrewed combat attack systems. These are one-way attack drones, conceptually similar to Iran's own Shahed drones, but produced at scale by the U.S. military. They were used heavily in the opening waves to overwhelm air defenses, radar sites, and soft targets. Iran did respond. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched hundreds of missiles and drones at U.S. and allied bases across the region. Targets included Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, Al Salam in Kuwait, Al Dhafra in the UAE, and the U.S. 5th Fleet Base in Bahrain. Regional air defenses, Patriot and THAAD systems intercepted many incoming weapons, but not all. Pete Hegseth confirmed 4 U.S. service members killed and 4 seriously wounded as a result of Iranian counterattacks. Additional details also emerged about the naval side of the operation. According to U.S. officials, American forces destroyed at least 9 Iranian warships in the opening phase, tying the strikes directly to preventing Iran from turning the Strait of Hormuz into an economic pressure point. Iranian naval units reportedly attempted to broadcast warnings claiming the strait was closed, even if they lacked the capability to fully enforce it. The signal itself mattered, showing Iran's intent to threaten global shipping rather than win a naval fight outright. The effects were immediate. Regional airspace disruptions and flight cancellations stranded civilians across the Gulf, underscoring how quickly military escalation spills into everyday life beyond the battlefield. Inside Iran, the Iranian Red Crescent reported 555 deaths as of March 2nd, with thousands more injured. Most casualties are tied to IRGC units in military infrastructure, confirming that the initial waves heavily degraded Iran's conventional military capabilities. What's unclear? Despite the scale, the fog of war is real. Several major claims remain unverified. Iranian media reported that a U.S. naval support vessel was hit. The Pentagon has not confirmed this, and no visual evidence has emerged. Following Trump's call for an overthrow, there are scattered reports of civilian movement and unrest inside Iran. However, heavy bombardment and disrupted communications make it impossible to confirm if a coordinated uprising is actually taking hold. At the same time, information warfare is muddying the waters. Regional media has reported strikes on symbolic and civilian locations, including the residence of former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, whose status remains unknown. There are also conflicting claims about a deadly strike on a school in Manab, with the Iranian Red Crescent blaming allied forces, while emerging rumors suggest it may have been hit by an errant IRGC missile. These reports may prove accurate, exaggerated, or entirely false, but they highlight how quickly the battle for the narrative becomes part of the war. What is clear is that Iran's leadership structure is broken, but not replaced. There is no confirmed successor to Khomeini. The institutions designed to manage transition were directly targeted. That creates instability, but not necessarily immediate collapse. One reality already taking shape is that Iran does not need a single decisive military victory to inflict massive damage. Its fastest tools are spread out asymmetric retaliation, pressure on bases, proxy attacks, and airspace disruption, rather than a direct head-to-head showdown. That is exactly why global attention has shifted to the Strait of Hormuz. Iran doesn't need to fully close it to cause harm. Simply making it dangerous raises insurance costs, disrupts global shipping, and injects panic into global energy markets, giving Tehran immense leverage even without total control. The three scenarios. Based on this current damage and known Iranian doctrine, there are three realistic paths forward. Scenario 1, internal collapse. With Khomeini dead and the assembly of experts crippled, Iran faces a succession vacuum. This could trigger a power struggle between IRGC hardliners, clerical factions, and political moderates. That fight could turn violent. In the most extreme version, the Islamic Republic collapses entirely into civil conflict. This is what Washington appears to be betting on, but it's also the least predictable outcome. Scenario 2, regional explosion. Facing existential threat, surviving Iranian commanders may activate the full axis of resistance. That means Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen, and Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria launching large-scale attacks. Israel appears to be preparing for this. It has already mobilized 100,000 reservists, a clear signal that a multi-front war is expected. This scenario drags the region into sustained conflict and forces U.S. and Israeli ground commitments far beyond what has already occurred. Scenario 3, global shock. If Iran's navy is destroyed, surviving IRGC units may attempt to mine or partially blockade the Strait of Hormuz. Roughly 20% of the world's oil supply moves through that narrow passage. Even partial disruption would spike global energy prices and force international naval intervention. This is Iran's strongest remaining leverage. So the question is whether Iran collapses internally, explodes regionally, or disrupts the global economy to survive. And the most dangerous part is this: none of those outcomes are fully controllable. This is not the end of the story. It's the moment the story becomes unpredictable. If you want to see what would happen if World War III took place now, watch the video you now see on your screen. Thanks for watching.